Coming up, what an excellent day for The Edge. Well, howdy folks, and welcome to Minute 46 of The Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate The Exorcist minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. All right, so our minute begins with Father Dyer knocking on a door.
And it ends with Damien grasping his arm.
But before that, folks, I gotta read to you something that I was hoping I wouldn't have to read. I've been putting it off and playing with the idea of not reading it, but it has to be done. Stick with us for just a little longer, because I promise it gets better. But right now, let's open our books. A reading from the Book of Blatty. Part 2. The Edge. Chapter 1. In our sleep, pain, which cannot forget, falls drop by drop upon the heart until, in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. Aeschylus. Chapter 1. They brought her to an ending in a crowded cemetery where the gravestones cried for breath. The Mass had been lonely as her life. Her brothers from Brooklyn, the grocer on the corner who'd extended her credit, watching them lower her into the dark of a world without windows. Damien Karras sobbed with a grief he had long misplaced. Ah, Dimmy, Dimmy. An uncle with an arm around his shoulder. Never mind, she's in heaven now, Dimmy. She's happy. Oh, God, let it be. Oh, God, please. Oh, God, please be. They waited in the car while he lingered by the grave. He could not bear the thought of her being alone. Driving to Pennsylvania Station, he listened to his uncles speak of their illnesses in broken immigrant accents. Emphysema. I gotta quit smoking. I almost died last year, you know that? Spasms of rage fought to break from his lips, but he pressed them back and felt ashamed. He looked out the window. They were passing by the home relief station where on Sunday mornings in the dead of winter, she would pick up the milk and the sacks of potatoes while he lay on his bed, the Central Park Zoo, where she left him in the summer while she begged by the fountain in front of the plaza. Passing the hotel, Karras burst into sobs, and then choked back the memories, wiped at the wetness of stinging regrets. He wondered why love had waited from this distance, waited for the moment when he need not touch, when the limits of contact and human surrender had dwindled to the size of a printed mass card tucked in his wallet. In memoriam. He knew. This grief was old. He arrived at Georgetown in time for dinner, but had no appetite. He paced inside his cottage. Jesuit friends came by with condolences, stayed briefly, promised prayers. Shortly after 10, Joe Dyer appeared with a bottle of scotch. He displayed it proudly. Chivas Regal. Where'd you get the money for it? Out of the poor box? Don't be an asshole. That would be breaking my vow of poverty. Where'd you get it then? I stole it. Karras smiled and shook his head as he fetched a glass and a pewter coffee mug. He rinsed them out in his tiny bathroom sink and said, I believe you. Greater faith I have never seen. Karras felt a stab of familiar pain. He shook it off and returned to Dyer, who was sitting on his cot breaking open the seal. He sat beside him. Would you like to absolve me now or later? Just pour, said Karras, and we'll absolve each other. Dyer poured deep into glass and cup. College presidents shouldn't drink, he murmured. It sets a bad example. I figure I relieved him of a terrible temptation. Karras swallowed scotch, but not the story. He knew the president's ways too well. A man of tact and sensitivity, he always gave through indirection. Dyer had come, he knew, as a friend, but also as the president's personal emissary. So when Dyer made a passing comment about Karras possibly needing a rest, the Jesuit psychiatrist took it as a hopeful omen of the future and felt a momentary flood of relief. Dyer was good for him, made him laugh, talked about the party and Chris McNeil, purveyed new anecdotes about the Jesuit prefect of discipline. He drank very little, but continually replenished Karras's glass, and when he thought he was numb enough for sleep, he got up from the cot and made Karras stretch out while he sat at the desk and continued to talk until Karras's eyes were closed and his comments were mumbled grunts. Dyer stood up and undid the laces of Karras's shoes. He slipped them off. I'm gonna steal my shoes now, Karras muttered thickly. No, I tell fortunes by reading the creases. Now shut up and go to sleep. You're a Jesuit cat burglar. Dyer laughed lightly and covered him with the coat he took from the closet. Listen, Someone's got to worry about the bills around this place. All you other guys do is rattle beads and pray for the hippies down on M Street. Karras made no answer. His breathing was regular and deep. Dyer moved quietly to the door and flicked out the light. "Stealing is a sin," muttered Karras in the darkness. "Mea culpa," Dyer said softly. For a time he waited, then at last decided that Karras was asleep. He left the cottage.
Yeesh.
Yeesh. That's our requisite yeesh at the end of all of these. At the end of all of these bummers from the Book of Blatty.
Yeah, we say yeesh and also yeesh with you.
Yeah. And also with your spirit.
Oh, they changed. Yeah, when I was a boy, they didn't. I don't know when they changed it. So I came back to church, I guess, with my girlfriend at the time, and we went to mass, and I was like, okay, I could do this. And then they changed the words.
Yeah, they changed it on you.
I don't know when.
They knew you were coming back. They were like, it's like, we're going to get him.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
In front of Jesus and all the saints.
Right? Them just looking down in their little,
right.
Hey, Jesus, this guy don't know the words.
What are you doing breaking into the Lord's house? Make an embarrassment of yourself. All right.
But yeah, folks, that is our scene as Blatty wrote it. And so now in the film, we have Father Dyer coming to comfort his friend in what is surely his darkest hour. In fact, before we even get into the room, the first word of this minute spoken by Damien on the other side of this door is, yeah. And it is so full of pain. He's been holding on to this, like the book says, for years.
It's an old grief.
It's an old grief, and now it's finally coming out. And is it my imagination, or can you even see Father Dyer's expression change a little bit as soon as he hears his friend's voice? It's like, oh, okay, this is where he's at.
Absolutely. So if you remember from our last minute, we have a shot of Father Dyer coming down the hall, and this is his place, right? Like he is in this dorm. He doesn't seem like an outsider though. Kids pass him in the hall, and he looks in on kids playing poker, and he's just like, this is great. This is me in my element.
Yeah, it almost looks like he's about to break into song.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Which he does. He does all the time, right?
Mm-hmm,
That's what I like about this change that you lay out here, right? Where in the book, he's in his own little cottage at Georgetown, the kind that Blatty is probably writing from experience about where the priest might live. So here, shooting in Fordham, which is Georgetown is an urban university as well, but Fordham is in the Bronx. And so putting it here in this hallway, and Damien is grieving and dying right across the hall from kids playing poker, right?
Yes,
that's a really great addition to it. So seeing Dyer have to transition, right, and feeling him go, okay, this is why I'm here. I'm here kind of as a doctor, I guess, right? Because he has this valise, this bag.
Right.
Even if not like literally he's doing a house call, it feels that way.
Right, yeah. And yeah, actually, you bring up a really, really interesting point, right? I don't know. It's a singularly unique feeling of like when you're grieving or when you're really, really sad and around you, the rest of the world is like not kind of like matching your energy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if Karras were like in his own little cottage and it was like, oh, I don't know, say raining,
mm-hmm.
or if it was just like a gloomy day, right? Like you would feel a little bit less, I don't know, like jarred, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that these kids are, like having so much fun, and there is the fact that joy still exists out in the world, but not for you
right
at that moment is like a unique feeling. And like folks who have felt it, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very, raw.
Right. If we do have younger listeners who maybe haven't experienced a close death, like Damien's going through, very similar things happen psychologically to the brain with breakups,
right.
with being kicked out of school or moving when you're
or
young.
the death of a
not
pet,
seeing your friends.
maybe?
Oh, yes, the death of I haven't had a death of a pet yet. So I didn't have pets until I was older. So my cat is 8 years old now. And I think about it all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you son of a bitch cat. You don't live as long as me. You're going to die one day. You're going to die up there, cat. I'd be so mad at you.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah. Like the psychology of it, of loss of any kind is very similar. So even though, there's different obviously there's different degrees of loss, but yeah, there's something about that. Like, I think kids go through that with their first breakup and they're in maybe high school or something, and they're like, the world is just going on.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's still math class.
Yeah.
Yeah. We still have to learn about the periodic table. And
it's like, who can think of math at a time like this?
Right.
This is, yeah.
Exactly. Or play dodgeball. Who could possibly play dodgeball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just like have any fun at all ever again, like it just seems like, and you can almost be, I mean, like you can almost kind of get like a little bit annoyed at other people having so much fun. It's like, okay, I get it,
Right. Yeah. That's why I think, as we said in the book and the script, Dyer is called out by Blatty about wearing a Snoopy t-shirt, which I think is a good idea. Maybe not, the costume designer would probably like, no.
Yeah.
Like, we're absolutely not doing that. But yeah, Dyer coming in and he's like finger gunning his way in, and then okay, here we go. Let's put on the proper, not like it's a mask, but the proper face, the proper performance for Damien as I go in.
Yes.
Like, there will be joking, I'm sure, because that's the relationship that Dyer and Karis have, even though this is the first scene we've had with them together.
Right. But it's good-natured joking. It's the joking is with the purpose of bringing Karis out of his sadness.
Right. We don't get to see who jokes first because we cut into the scene, right? And they've been there for a little bit, and the alcohol has come out of the doctor's bag, the valise, right? But Father, we see that transition where Dyer is like, okay, I got to put on my serious face, even if he anticipates that they're going to be joking, right? It's like,
right,
who's going to do that first? There's a time and a place. He can't come in like, hey, Cosmo Kramer, right? Like,
right. He's got to feel it out. He's got to feel where Karis is first. Right. Yeah. And even before that, right? He goes in there, right? Because that's what a friend does. And guys, the thing that helped me through this part of the book and this part of the movie is just that, right? Like, even in the face of this horrible thing, we have proof of the endurance of good. Our characters, our heroes, are in a dark movie, a movie which is famously dark and famously upsetting, so much so that I think the casual viewer, maybe even the more seasoned viewer, can come away from this thing wondering whether or not good triumphs in the end. And we're not at the end just yet. We've got a long road ahead of us, folks. We're on the edge, right? But I want to turn your attention to Father Dyer here, coming in to comfort his friend. I think a lot of us think about the strength of good versus the strength of evil, right? The end of our film will certainly test those two forces in like a very bombastic display. And I think our minds go to that first, so much so that I think we miss these smaller but still powerful displays of goodness, perhaps because in these smaller moments, goodness may not necessarily win over evil, but I think that's the beauty right there. I think if we think about it in terms of win, lose, triumph, defeat, we miss out on the beauty of scenes like this, where sometimes the power of goodness does not come from winning over evil, but from enduring in the face of it. Remember that line from Marcus Zuzak's The Book Thief about how some people have this quality, right? He called it the quality of not leaving, right? This, to me, is an example of how goodness doesn't necessarily need to be as loud and as bombastic as evil. Sometimes it wins simply by being quiet and constant. And that's what it's doing here with Father Dyer as he comes to comfort his friend.
This time around, I've been, we're looking at things very minutely, obviously through a microscope, but this time I've been thinking a lot about how the movie ends with Father Dyer, right? So again, spoilers if you're, if you're going, there's not a lot of indication in his first scenes that he will be someone that we are meant to see the film's arc through.
Right.
That's kind of one of the surprises of the end of the film is of not a bad surprise, but like we go, right. This is we're leaving this, and we'll look at it again, how it works when we get there. But there is this kind of transference of point of view from our characters to Father Dyer, in a way that at the end, it's a little bit cold feeling sometimes, because we're like, what about Chris? What about Reagan?
Right.
So I've been paying attention to that a little bit and about what this means, like how, like, yeah, it's something I don't quite have an answer for, but this time I'm looking for it as we look at the film.
Yeah, and I think this is a great opportunity, right? We got plenty of time. We have ample time to like, examine this thing. And sometimes we come up with answers. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes, sometimes things surprise us, that we never saw before.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's why I love doing this. So we cut from outside the room to a close-up on a bottle of scotch, Chivas Regal. Now, Keenan, a quick search tells me that Chivas, which I thought was Spanish, is actually the last name of the Scottish brothers who manufactured it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. However, it does have a meaning in Spanish, which I thought was appropriate here, amongst several meanings. It has a lot of meanings, actually. But one of them is blanket.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you did I don't know anything about alcohol because I've never had a drink, so I've avoided that my whole life. So,
well, yeah. But yeah, it's funny, folks. Like we get presented with these things every minute. I'm like, should I do a research on the whole history and development of Snoopy? I don't know. Like,
why not? What would that hurt?
Let's just do that, right?
Everyone should know more about Snoopy.
Yes, right. Should be taught in all the universities.
But Scotch whiskey, yeah. Do you have to
Scotch whiskey? Yeah.
know more? About that?
No. But I just thought that blanket was a really cool little thing.
Certainly, Damien knows what Chivas Regal is, right? He's able to say, "Oh, would you afford that?" Right?
Yeah, right. So he knows that this is a and I think like maybe drinking connoisseurs are like, yeah, obviously that's a really expensive, really famous bit of alcohol there, boys. Come on.
Right.
But yeah, now we see that this thing is more than half gone. So time has jumped considerably, and we are maybe not. Maybe it's we've only been in there for a minute, and Karras just grabbed it, and he's like,
I think so. And yeah, one thing behind the bottle looks like a used up carton of not a carton. Oh my goodness, a used up pack of cigarettes.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I imagine that we're supposed to think that they've been drinking the whole thing and smoking all their cigarettes, right?
Yeah. So this is so yeah. Some time has passed, and we're perhaps coming in at the end of what was likely a very long visit. Father Dyer is putting out his cigarette as Damien. I keep wanting to call him Damien lately, but I think that's fitting here, right? It's weird. Like I unconsciously call him Damien or Father Karras, depending on like his position in the scene, right?
Or Dimmy.
Or Dimmy, right? Sometimes. Now Damien asks, like, where'd you get the money for the Chivas Regal? After some pressing, Dyer says that he stole it. I'm not sure what to make of this. Do we believe him, or is he being sarcastic? Like he is, as we know, Father Cutesy Flip, right? Like that's his nickname.
Yeah, there's a nice bit of humorous blatty dialogue here where it is where'd you get that? You take the money out of the poor box,
right?
And then Father Dyer's like, no, that would be terrible, right?
Yeah.
I stole it.
Yeah.
But he says he stole it from the president of the university. So I don't know if we're supposed to take it literally or not, but
yeah, I wonder if because in the book. Karras is talking about like his suspicion that, Father Dyer is also here like on behalf of the president, just to kind of like check in on Karras. And so I imagine like the meeting went like, it's like, hey, go check on, our guy, Father Karras, and Father Dyer is like, sure. And I'm going to take this Chivas Regal as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yoink. Right.
Yeah. So stole, whatever, right? Borrowed, stole, whatever. But yeah.
But then they're talking about, the poor example it would have to be drinking as they're getting drunk, right?
Yes. Right. Yeah. And again, like this is, I think you pointed out before, Keenan, like, is this one of those, the first films where we kind of like see priests not being not being like in character?
Right. A lot of the 30s and 40s priests were in character, right? Father O'Malley, who Spencer Tracy plays in Boys Town.
Oh, his name was Father O'Malley?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Let me double check.
Well, I'm just saying because like our actor here is named Father O'Malley.
Yeah, but there's a I'm sorry, I have my names wrong. Father O'Malley is the next movie I was going to talk about, which is Going My Way with Bing Crosby.
Okay.
So that's Father O'Malley. What the hell is what the heck is the father in Boys Town? Spencer Tracy won an Oscar in Boys Town playing a father named Father Flanagan, of course.
Okay, there we go.
That's the founding of that's the real life story of the founding of Boys Town by the real Father Flanagan. So then
so he was a founding father.
Yes, of Boys Town. So then Father O'Malley was another Oscar-winning role, but for Bing Crosby in Going My Way.
Gotcha.
And yeah, they're on all the time. They don't have, They don't have a life before or after the movie. We don't know about their family life. We don't know about what they did before they were priests. They're just both young, hip priests, but we don't know much about them afterwards.
Right. It's like you never really think about it, right? Like you just assume that like a priest's favorite book or mode of entertainment is reading the Bible, and his favorite music to listen to. It's like, let's go and listen to CDs of like, some hymnals or something like that, right? Like you don't imagine them like bowling or smoking or watching TV or something like that.
Right. Absolutely. Or boxing, right? As we talked about.
Or boxing, right?
So in the background of this shot with the bottle of Rivas, the bottle of Chivas Regal.
Chivas Regal, yeah.
Right. We have the cigarettes, but also we have Damien's free weights that he has in the back.
Oh, okay. There, yeah. And so, in any case, like, Damien believes him, right, about stealing the Chivas Regal. Father Cutesy Flip goes on, trying his best to make Dimmy laugh, or at least smile. But we get a close-up on Dimmy's face. Now I'm calling him Dimmy. And again, this amazing blank canvas of the actor's face. We can see the struggle going on just behind the eyes, the struggle to keep it together. And then it's almost like he remembers something. And that's what does it. He turns away from what? He's not looking at anything, but perhaps he turns away from the memory. He looks down in despair and he says, "Oh Christ!" And he just completely breaks.
Like
and he goes
once their bit ends, right? Like they can do this banter, and then like that's all that's keeping him from forgetting the grief for a second.
Right. He's trying to like keep up with the bit, and he's yes-anding and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's like Abbott and Costello end with third base. Oh God,
my wife.
Your wife? Who's your wife? No, who's on first?
Oh my God. Oh, someone needs to make that. Where like the initial joke is that like, what if the camera had just stayed after the bit and Abbott just breaks down and then we think, oh, this is the joke. This is the joke that it's like this serious moment. But then it kicks back into who's on first.
Right, we gotta go to take two. Let's go.
Oh God.
You okay there, bud? I know these baseball stars nowadays, they got strange names, but come on. Pull yourself together.
Oh my God.
Bud, you just don't understand. Nobody understands this madness in this world. These baseball players' names. I saw the Naughty 90s, the movie where they, Abbott and Costello had done Who's on First, like on stage. So there's not like a definitive version. You could see clips of them doing it on stage as well. But the one movie that has Who's on First in the most definitive way is called the Naughty 90s. Mm-hmm. And it's an okay movie. It's not one of their best movies, but that's like the best on film version of Who's on First.
I see.
So that's the one that you see. But then I was surprised. I was shocked actually. There's another scene later on where Bud Abbott, Lou Costello. Yeah, Bud Abbott is he's trying to get his nerve up to fight a guy. Like Costello's trying to get him like, hey, you could take him on. And he says, yeah, I'm a tough fella, kind of cowardly lion way. I'm a tough fella. I'm a bad hombre, he says. It's like, what? A bad hombre?
Wow.
Which I know. I mean, you know who says bad hombre?
Wait, what?
Donald Trump said bad hombres.
What?
Yeah, during the it's one of there's so much Trumpism, so maybe you can be forgiven for forgetting this, but this is a really big one.
I try my best not to listen to him. So I mean, and it's unavoidable sometimes.
But this is one of his during the first campaign in the debate with Hillary Clinton. He said we need to deport these people. Some of them they're bringing in drugs, etc. They're bad hombres. And people were like, what a strange phrase, right? And then so people had pulled it up and there's like movies like, with Latin people that are bad hombre and that kind of thing. Like they've taken that as this badge of honor. But I'm like, in your crazy brain, did you just like remember this this Abbott and Costello bit? Yeah, from your childhood? You don't even know, like, because Trump has all these really weird turns of phrases, right? And so obviously people who like Trump, they're like, he's a genius. He knows how to coin these terms. And other people were like, you're a madman, right? So where do you get these terms, right? Like, like she's bleeding out of her whatever. Like these, like they're like, how would anybody put these words together, right?
Yeah.
He might have gotten that somewhere in his subconscious from Abbott Costello.
I love how we censor, it's like you say, bleeding out of her whatever.
Yeah.
I love how we don't censor ourselves with The Exorcist.
No, that's what Trump said. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, he said specifically whatever, the word whatever?
I didn't know that how much you've been trying to forget all this Trump stuff.
Yeah.
So he says of Megyn Kelly that Megyn Kelly was so mad at me. Her eyes are bulging. She was bleeding out of her nose. She was bleeding out of her whatever.
Oh my God.
Right. You're just like, how did be like where in your brain do you get these phrases, right? Maybe that's an Abbott and Costello.
Yeah. Bleeding out of her whatever.
Oh, Lou, I was bleeding out of my whatever.
Oh God. Okay.
All right, let's get back.
Let's just. So Dimmy goes on. He goes on talking about how he should have been there, and that's when Father Dyer gets up and he goes to him. Again, folks, we get those counteracting forces, those counteracting themes, right? The moment despair rears its head for Damien, Dyer is right there, holding him. Again, an embrace, right? He tucks him in. Father Dyer playing father to son Dimmy, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We cut. It's like cute little bit of business here as he takes the cigarette from Damien and he puts it in his own mouth. I like that. And we notice the humor ramping up just a little, right? Chasing away the darkness of the scene. I tell fortunes by reading the creases as Dyer goes to turn off the light. Dimmy's hand reaches out and grasps Dyer's arm. What do we make of this, Keenan? When I first saw it, I thought he was like grabbing Dyer's arm like you're a really good friend type of thing. But I'm thinking about it now. Like, could it be that he doesn't want Dyer to turn off the light? Like, spoiler for the next minute, folks. This is that's what he got up to do. Like, could it be like, hey, I can't face the dark, or is he just reaching out to his friend?
It just feels desperate. Like I don't know if he knows why he's grabbing out for him. Right? It feels like somebody emotionally drowning.
Yeah,
but he's pulling out and just reaching and like just here contact. It's all. It is.
He needs some kind of human contact.
Yeah. It's really interesting pairing these two together, like pairing. So in the book, there's mention of Mary's funeral. In the movie, we lied over that. We don't have any of the funeral. So in the and also in the book, there's a break where it says we're done with part 1. We're in part 2.
Yes,
right? We're at the edge now. We're at the beginning now. We're at the edge. So in the movie, we don't do those because, as I said before, like, as a weaker director, I would want to include everything in the book. You know, I would want to include these title cards and everything. But like to juxtapose so closely the scene in bed with Chris and Reagan, where it is Chris reaching out to grab Reagan, and now we have Damien as the person on the bed reaching up for Dyer. Like this is the kind of thing that cinema can do, right? Like we don't have characters explaining it. It's not in the prose description. There's not a narrator, right? It just those things are mirrored and they're perfect, right?
Yeah.
I like how much we see of Damien's room. Again, we haven't seen this before. We haven't seen it. And so we know it's a dorm because we see Father Dyer passing other dorms rooms.
Right.
And it's really interesting to me, like how similar it is to the cell of a priest, right? Like, I actually don't know. Have you seen like priest bedrooms and things like that?
I haven't, but, well, I don't know. Like from the deep recesses of my mind, I imagine them to be like in movies that I've seen, like very, very sparse, very clean, very, very kind of like straight edges and all that. Yeah. And I do remember in the book it does say, I don't know if we've passed this scene or not, but Blatty does remark that Karras has very few possessions, and all that he desires is that they are clean. And that does not seem to jive with like what's going on here. This is, and maybe we're trying to kind of like get a look into Karras's emotional state here, that like he is falling apart. He is in shambles. And so his room is also in shambles right now.
Yes. So my mother used to work at the rectory of my church a little bit when I was a kid. She would do, not full time, but she would go and help the priests with their taxes.
Okay.
And help clean up the office and stuff, because she wasn't an accountant, but my grandpa was, and so she can go do some things with with the priest there. And we would sometimes get to go and just sit in their little kitchen, which is very little. I mean, this is a rectory that would house, I don't know, at the time I was so young, I didn't ask, like maybe 4 or 5 priests, something like that. And you'd get glimpses of their living spaces, and they were very, very small, right? Like shockingly small. And so for for Damien to have a dorm room basically as his space makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
I haven't spent a lot of. I didn't live in the dorms, right? You didn't live at the dorms when you were in college either.
No.
So I have a
Yeah.
little bit of it, just seeing friends living in the dorms, and then sometimes when we go to conferences at a university, it's a cheaper option to go and stay at their dorms rather than taking a hotel. It's always shocking how different they are, but how much they very are the same, and they always feel like prison cells. I've never seen a dorm that feels welcoming or that feels nice. So I don't know how kids, young college students, like make it into a fun place to hang out.
Yeah.
And yeah, Damien's space is not a fun place to hang out.
No, definitely not.
So you kind of get the feeling of that, like even before he's going through his grief, right? It is messy now. There's things on the floor. His desk has papers everywhere. Like his filing cabinet is open. There's like, it's all in disarray, but you get the sense that he doesn't have people over.
Yeah.
There's not like, it's not like a homey place. So like he likes living in the dark, it seems, or he's stuck in the dark, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Can I go back to your reading and talk about this Aeschylus quote?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So this is the beginning of part 2, The Edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we start with this quote from Aeschylus. So Blatty's writing the book when in 69, 70, 71, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this quote from Aeschylus would have been probably much more famous than it is now to us today, because this was read by Robert Kennedy on live TV in front of a crowd the night that Martin Luther King was killed.
Oh.
So for some people, because Robert Kennedy was running for president, for some people, this was how they learned that Martin Luther King had been killed. Because he was giving this speech. So it's actually a pretty incredible clip that you can find where RFK is in front of a group and he's talking to in Indianapolis to a large group of black voters. And you can see in the clip, like the crowd has a lot of black people in it. There's black people on stage with him. And so he gets on and he says, let me read here. So I won't do the voice, but you can read RFK.
Yeah.
So he gets up on stage, ladies and gentlemen, I'm only going to talk to you for just a minute or so this evening, because he had been planning to do a speech.
Right.
So I'm only going to talk to you for a minute or so this evening because I have some very sad news for all of you. Could you lower those signs, the campaign signs? I have very sad news for you all, and I think sad news for our fellow citizens and people who love peace all over the world. And that is that Martin Luther King was shot and killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee. And you could it's a really crazy clip. You could hear people in the crowd. Like, it's very clearly them hearing about it for the first time. And you could just hear this outpouring of grief. So so he goes on to talk about Martin Luther King and everything that meant. He talks about the polarization between black people, the black community, the polarization within the white community, and then the hatred towards one another, etc. So he says, but we have to make an effort in the United States. We have to make an effort to understand, to get beyond, or go beyond these rather difficult times. My favorite poet was Aeschylus, and he once wrote, even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until on our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. So he uses that to eulogize Martin Luther King in the moment. So I don't know, I haven't done any research about that, about how famous that would be, but certainly more famous in 1971 and 72 than it would be today.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is why it kind of like was in Blatty's mind. I
imagine so, right? So I haven't found a smoking gun of evidence about that, but there's two options, right? That either Blatty is as enamored with Aeschylus as RFK is, which is possible, right? They're both learned people. They're both Catholic. Quoting from a I don't know if you should say Aeschylus's religion. What is Aeschylus's religion? I don't know if it's right to say he was a pagan, right? He was a believer in the ancient pantheon, right? The Greek pantheon. So like quoting this playwright who would be familiar with the ancient pantheon about the nature of death and despair and grief, right? So maybe RFK and Blatty both liked Aeschylus and both like this quote. I think it's a little bit more likely that Blatty was familiar with it because of RFK, unless we find evidence otherwise.
Dang. Okay. Well, I mean that actually brings some insight into into the whole theme of this minute, I think, and then also into our reading. Wow, thank you, Keenan.
Yeah, thinking about like the horror of The Exorcist in historical context, right? Because as you say, the movie and the book, right? The movie probably more so feels more timeless, right? You said that in a couple of minutes ago, right? That that the movie feels timeless. We're not like Blatty's inclinations is to like Snoopy,
Yeah.
jokes about the remake of Goodbye, Mr. Chips, etc.
Right.
The movie
yeah.
is not tied to that, so we don't hear which president's at the White House, Nixon,
Right.
So we can have our movie sort of anywhere, but again, like The Exorcist is released at a time of great social change, of great religious
Yes.
change, of great political change, and it's one of my most interesting parts, or it's one of the most interesting parts to me about American history and how much society, like the nature of what it is to be an American, changes. Like our
Yes.
inner life changes more than the external, like more than laws. Like it's who we think of ourselves as. Like that changes irreparably. So a horror movie that comes out of that would be about these themes that you've been talking about, and not necessarily about boogeymen, or even like a lot of the 30s horror films are about class.
Right. Yeah. Ah, wow. Really interesting. Well, in any case, that's where we leave our two fathers. Once again, folks, I'm continuously surprised by how many of these minutes end with our characters being together, as lonely as this movie sometimes is for them. Like a lot of minutes end with them being together. Either they're together and happy, or they're together, facing some sort of trouble, but at least together. Keenan, is there anything else we want to talk about in this minute?
No, I think we got it all.
Folks, once again, this has been another excellent Exorcist Minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark. You can find me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I've been Keenan Deese. You can find me on Instagram and Letterboxd as Howdy Keenan.
And yeah, the website for the show is theexorcistminute.com. And also, we have a listener group on Facebook. It's called Compelling Conversations, an Exorcist Minute listener group. It's a private group, but just request to join and we'll let you in, and then you can be in here with us. And of course, as always, if you'd like to leave us a message, our email is theexorcistminute@gmail.com, all one word, and we'll be sure to read it. Lastly, if you like the show and you want to help us out, the best thing you can do for a show that's just starting out is to hop on over to your podcast directory and leave us a little 5-star review, and that'll help other people find us, and that way we can keep growing this cool community. All right, Keenan, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Okay. Folks, until next time, the power of Abbott and Costello compels you.